Welcome to the Democratic Forum. I'm your host, Kim Kojak, Chair of the Merrimack Town Democratic Committee, as well as a candidate for Merrimack State Representative. For this segment, taped at the offices of Merrimack TV, our guest is Roger Tilton, resident of Milford and Senate candidate for District 11, which includes Merrimack, Amherst, Milford, and Wilton. Welcome to Merrimack, Roger.
Hey, it's nice to be here.
It's great for you to come.
Thanks for having me.
This seat is currently held by State Senator Peter Bragdon, also of Milford, who will not be on the ballot this coming November. Can you talk a little bit about the Senate and its role in New Hampshire politics?
Actually, the seat is not held by Peter Bragdon. He actually resigned in disgrace, as you may recall.
Oh, I do now, yes.
Yeah, it's
Thank you for the reminder.
It's an open seat, and yes, I'm from Milford, and with the redistricting 2 years ago, we became part of Merrimack.
Yes, you did.
So the district has shrunk in the number of towns. It went from 11 to 4. So there's, as you mentioned, Merrimack, Milford, Amherst, and Wilton. So I'll be spending a lot of time here in Merrimack getting to know Merrimack voters.
Yes, you will. So there are many issues that you are passionate about. Can you talk about jobs and the economy and how your professional experience will help you lead on this important issue?
Well, maybe I should first talk a little bit about that professional experience. For the last 25 years, I've worked as a Wall Street investment manager dealing day to day with clients, both the 1%ers and the 99%ers. So I kind of see from both ends what works and what doesn't work. I also spend a lot of time doing analysis of corporate spreadsheets, profit and loss, what makes a good investment, whether it's a company or a municipality as far as bonds go. So I've been inundated with that information for the last 25 years. And like anything else, once you've been doing something for a long time, the knowledge starts to pile up.
Sure.
And what they say is if you do something for 10,000 hours, you're an expert.
Or a genius.
I don't even want to think how many hours I've done this. But what I've realized is a lot of the economic theory that Republicans propagate is bull. It's bunk. It's not true. It doesn't work. In fact, George H.W. Bush in 1980, running against Ronald Reagan, called Reagan's trickle-down economics tax cuts for the rich, they'll have more money to spend and invest, and it all trickled down to everybody else. Well, George H.W. Bush called that voodoo economics. It was true then, and it's true today.
Of course it is.
And just to follow that point a little bit further, people will say that, but the Reagan economy was great. We had the biggest boom we've ever had since the end of World War II.
I don't remember it that way.
And it's not true either.
Right.
What spurred the growth of the stock market and the economy in the mid-1980s was the Federal Reserve started cutting interest rates again. And that's what led to the boom. Now, fast forward to 1993, President Bill Clinton says, we're going to raise taxes, just 10%. On the top bracket. We're going to move the top bracket from 36% to 39.6%, a 10% surtax on the wealthiest income earners in America. And what happened in the 1990s? We had a greater economic boom, bigger than what we had during the Reagan era.
It was an explosion, yes.
So I can say with evidence, documentary evidence, that the Republican plans for the economy are bull. They don't work. What does work? Why don't we pay people more? You know what happens if you pay people more? People have more money to spend. And what happens when people have more money to spend? They spend more money.
They do.
and especially the people that live paycheck to paycheck, that make a minimum wage. You give them $100, that money will go right back into the economy immediately. Yes. And what drives the economy? Spending. And what drives spending? Cash flow. How do we get more cash flow into the hands of consumers? And that's what we ought to be doing as a state government. We ought to be looking at how do we get cash flow into the hands of our citizens, not always helping business. Why don't we help the consumer, the person who actually spends the money?
So obviously you're a proponent of raising the minimum wage.
What a great idea. I couldn't have thought of it myself. A minimum wage of a living wage, how about? We got to start at $10 an hour. You know, right now the minimum wage in New Hampshire doesn't exist. We have the federal minimum wage here. No reason we can't pass legislation and have Governor Hassan sign it that says we're going to pay you $10 an hour if you have a job. I mean, think about that. $10 an hour times a 40-hour work week times 50 weeks a year is 2,000 times 10. That's $20,000. Right now, it's hard to live on $20,000, let alone $14,500.
Well, it is. It is. And so I think, you know, as long as we're talking about the economy, and certainly here in New Hampshire, taxes are of utmost importance and are top of mind to many of our constituents, especially those that own homes. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the economy. And I noticed on your sign that you actually have a marijuana leaf. So since we're talking about our economy here in New Hampshire, Roger, why don't you kind of segue into that for me?
Well, New Hampshire likes to pride itself on being first in the nation, I guess, when it comes to politics or presidential politics. And we should be first in the nation in more things, too. We're a small state. We can be an incubator for the entire country. But we've already lost out on the cannabis issue to Colorado and Washington. Voters there in 2012 legalized cannabis for anybody, 21 years old or older, to walk in and buy it, pay a little tax on it. And not only is it a revenue source, and in New Hampshire, finding a new revenue source is a pretty good idea because there are all these pledges. We don't want to have a sales tax. We don't want to have an income tax. In fact, we don't want to pay any taxes. We want somebody else to fund the government. Well, how about people that buy lottery tickets, or people that drink alcohol, or maybe even people that smoke a little cannabis?
Well, we're a little bit more conservative, I think, in our thinking than those states. And it's probably a good idea to see how those states actually work it, you know, into their economy and what regulations and laws that they have to come up with.
And I totally agree with you. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And what we're finding just in the first 8, 9, 10 months of legalization in those two states are a number of things. Emergency room visits are down. Teenage marijuana use is down. Yeah. Tax revenues are through the roof. So far, so good.
Well, I would be interested in seeing you on the campaign trail, engaging in voters about this very important topic. As you know, we have tried to push marijuana legislature through.
For medical.
For medical, yeah.
Now, there are 22 or 23 states that already have medical marijuana.
Yeah, and it's a small step, and it's a beginning.
It is a beginning, and you do need to start with small steps. But let me address your other question, your initial question about taxes.
Yes.
We have a state budget that is predominantly paid for with property taxes.
Yes, it is. And as you know, I'm a realtor, and this is something that is... It's a very high concern to people that are purchasing homes, where they choose to live, how much in taxes are they going to pay, and it's a lot.
It's a lot for like an average house in New Hampshire. It's like $500 a month. Yes. Is that about right? $6,000 a year.
Right, yes.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, why not spread the tax burden a little more evenly upon everybody that lives in New Hampshire or the people that visit New Hampshire? If you look at alcohol sales, for instance. The state of New Hampshire takes in tens of millions of dollars selling alcohol directly to the public. And we lead the nation in per capita alcohol consumption. Almost twice as much alcohol per person is sold in this state, but I don't think we're drinking it all. I think there's people coming in from maybe Massachusetts or Maine or Vermont.
Yeah, that's absolutely it, of course.
But I'm willing to look at alternative sources of income for the state of New Hampshire.
Good, because we certainly need some, I feel. So talk a little bit about your support of the Affordable Care Act and also your personal experience that you had with that.
Well, back in the 2008-2009 worldwide financial meltdown, I was working for a large Wall Street firm, and they drew a line and said, if you're below that line, you're out of here. And I was one of the 141,000 people in the industry that lost their job.
Yeah, it was a bad time.
And I had really good health care coverage, and I was told that I could keep that coverage through COBRA. Now, COBRA is very expensive.
Yes.
It's not affordable health care. It's unaffordable health care. My COBRA coverage would have been $2,200 a month. You do the math, that's about $26,000 a year. And when you just lost your job and you don't have a job, that's a lot to pay. So this happened to me in February of '09, about 2 weeks after President Obama was sworn in. And I thought, well, I'm not going to have to worry about this because he campaigned on health care for all, and it'll just be, you know, a couple of months, and I'll have my health care. A couple of months, you know, turned into a year before the legislation was passed, and then 4 more years until it became law. But last year in New Hampshire, we had to participate in the federal exchange because in the Senate, one vote made the difference. The Senate voted 13-11 to not allow us in New Hampshire to fund or structure or put together our own health insurance plan. So we had to go to the federal government's plan. That same legislature that year also decided that we didn't need to expand Medicaid for the 35,000 residents that can't afford health care either.
Right.
Well, that got changed in the past session thanks to the strong support of Governor Hassan.
Right.
But for me, I needed health care. And for the first time in my professional life, I was one of the uninsured. And I didn't get health care until the Affordable Care Act took effect. And I had one choice, the federal exchange, and we all know how the rollout of that went. But I did get covered, and I'm happy to tell you that now my health insurance is a lot less than $2,200 a month. It's still kind of expensive, but it's affordable, and I think that's the key. It's affordable health insurance. And I'm going to guess that my premium is going to go down next year, and I'll tell you why. Because the Senate 2 years ago voted against creating our own health exchange in New Hampshire, we had to take the federal exchange. Well, only one insurance company participated.
Right.
But because it has been such an overwhelming success, now there's at least 4 more insurance companies that want to join the New Hampshire plan. And what's going to happen when I and all the rest of us have 5 choices for health insurance instead of just 1? Exactly.
And that was the whole intent, the original whole intent of the Affordable Care Act, is open up a marketplace so that it is competitive.
And that's why count me in.
Yeah.
I'm totally for it. And you know what's even better about it? The Affordable Health Care Act is actually a jobs creator. And I'll tell you why.
Yes, I believe it.
There was a time where I thought, you know what? I want to quit my job and start my own business. And if I quit my job, my company will hire someone to replace me. I've got a new business. I might hire a couple of people. Look, that's 3 or 4 new jobs created. Oh, but I can't quit my job because if I do, my wife who has a chronic condition or my children who have needs, I can't do that to them. They have to have the security of knowing that we have a good health care plan. And that other thing about how the have your doctor, keep your plan, that's all bunk too. And I'm tired of them perpetuating bunk. The truth of the matter was those insurance plans that you could have kept, they were junk. Look at that. I did bunk and junk. But I'll tell you why they're
I like
junk.
it.
The premiums were low, but the coverage didn't exist. If you got sick or went to the hospital, your deductible is like $10,000 or $15,000 before you get $1 of benefit. So yeah, you think you had a good plan because you were only paying like $210 a month. Well, yeah, get sick, go to a hospital, get in an accident, and then you realize that you had junk insurance. So I'm tired of them, the other side, you know, the Republicans, always talking about how, oh, you could have kept your plan. Well, your plan was bunk.
Well, isn't it also good for the economy for people to have more disposable income, that they're not having to pay for health insurance that is maybe one of the largest expenditures that they have every month, maybe outside of a mortgage or a car payment?
Anything that gets more money into the hands of the consumer is a good thing.
Yeah.